What is up, guys? Kevin from the KO Sports Corner. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on all our social medias, which include Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, which you're listening to this right now. Make sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts and hit up our YouTube channel, the KO Sports Corner. The same title you see on the name of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Today, it is NBA season review or preview, better said, because we'll be reviewing the end of the season. But right now, it's a preview. We're going to go through a lot of content. I'm going to try to chop it up as quickly as possible for all of you guys to understand. And obviously, there are predictions. Right now, it is Bucks versus Nets. They're playing at the moment of this recording, so this will probably be out after that game or right before Lakers versus Warriors, which will be the first game of the season. Once again, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when we post a video. Let's get it going right with the Eastern Conference playoff teams. I already made a video about this, but I think we could go in a little bit more into depth and just go straight up with teams. I'm not going to make them in standings. I'll make power rankings and I'll make, conference, standings at some point. But Nets, Bucks, Heat, Hawks, 76ers, and Celtics, I have them all making the playoffs. And then we have the play-in teams, which are the Knicks, Bulls, Wizards, and Pacers. A team that you guys don't see in here, the Hornets. I don't think they'll make it this time around. The Bulls got a lot better. Washington got Spencer Dinwiddie. Indiana's always been a pretty good team. And then you have New York. This is in no specific order either. But yeah, going quickly back to the Eastern Conference playoff teams, the Nets are probably going to be the number one seed. Milwaukee's the reigning NBA champs. They got a lot better. The Miami Heat had a great offseason, added Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris. You brought back Max Strus, which is a very good three-point shooter. Omer Yurtseven you brought in, who is a great 7-foot center who could shoot threes and space the floor very well. And then you brought in, back Gabe Vincent, very good player. The rumors of John Wall came up today on a possible buyout scenario where Houston buys him out and he joins the Miami Heat. That would be an absolute incredible. That would be incredible just because Miami truly does need a backup veteran point guard. Even though I do trust Gabe Vincent, the Hawks always get better. Trae Young, very good player. Clint Capella, John Collins, who came back. Kevin Huerter, Bogan Bogdanovic. I mean, that's a very good team. They did well in the draft. And then finally, you have 76ers. That one's a little bit, it's up in the air really for me because when you look at it, this is not a bad team at all. On paper, it's a very good team. It's a top 3 seed. But Ben Simmons scenarios, I mean, I'll be making a separate video on Simmons and I'll be making a separate one on Kyrie. But there's been issues with Simmons. I'm not going to get too much into it. But we all know what's happening. He got kicked out of practice today. We'll get into that, obviously, in possibly the next video. And then finally, we have Boston. I mean, Boston's a very overhyped team, I would say. And we'll get into that later in this video. But Boston isn't that good. I mean, they're a good team. Obviously, they're going to be making the playoffs, but they're really that good to be considered a top 3 seed or a top 4 seed in this team and possibly say, hey, they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they got a little bit worse, in my opinion. I mean, you lost Gordon Hayward, you lost Kemba Walker, which weren't big pieces on that team, weren't that good, but just, I don't know, Boston doesn't seem like that team that we all remember. And going into the play-in tournament teams, I mean, Knicks made the playoffs last season. I think we'll repeat that. Then you have the Chicago Bulls, who had one hell of an offseason. They went from a low-tier team to a mid-tier to a pretty good team. Washington's always a team who somehow manages a way to get into the playoffs. And then you have the Pacers, who pretty much the same thing with the Wizards. So, yeah, we're going to move on to the Western Conference standings and the teams making the playoffs there. I have the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, and the Dallas Mavericks. It just makes all of those make sense. Those are very good teams. You could really say that Memphis could sneak in here, maybe even Utah. But Golden State's getting Klay Thompson back. They got a lot better throughout the season. They got some good signings. So I do think Golden State is a top team and a top 6 team in the Western Conference. Then the Lakers, obviously, you have LeBron, AD, routing Trevor Ariza, Kendrick Nunn, Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook, their big acquisition of the offseason. So LA just got better overall. And then you have the LA Clippers. They're not going to have Kawhi for a long, long time, but they have Terrence Mann, who they re-signed. They made a couple deals here and there, and all of a sudden they're a pretty good team once again. They also brought back Reggie Jackson. They got Eric Bledsoe. So, yeah, I like what LA did. They didn't get all the production that Kawhi gives them, but they got most of it, and that's something good. Then we have the Denver Nuggets, pretty much the same scenario as the Clippers. they don't have their star player or their second star player, which is in this case Jamal Murray. He's going to be out, but they have a very good backup point guard, maybe the best backup point guard in the NBA, which is Monte Morris. I really do like this guy. He's a very good player. He's a very good backup point guard off the bench, doing what he has to. I love it. You know, you re-signed Michael Porter Jr., very good there on that end. You kept Bull. There's not much more to say on this. This is a top 5 team in the league. They also got Jeff Green and JaMychal Green, if I'm correct. So it's good to know all of this stuff. Phoenix, somehow they always get better. They got Landry Shamet, a very good player. The biggest L they've taken this offseason is not re-signing Andre Drummond. They also got JaVale McGee, a very good backup center, which is a need that they had. They re-signed Mikal Bridges. This team is bound to make the finals again. They're a very good team. Chris Paul stayed on the team. He signed like a 5-year deal. So yeah, and then we have Dallas, Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis. There's not much to say on this team. Somehow they always manage a way to just get in there and sneak in. They did it last year. So and they took the Clippers to 7. So that was with Kawhi. So it's going to be interesting to see how Dallas does this season. They could obviously be a top 4 team, get home court advantage and start off with that. Or they go into 5 or 6, and then you're playing a top team like the Lakers or possibly the Clippers. And then we go into the play-in tournament teams. We have Memphis, Utah, Portland, and New Orleans. Portland got a lot worse throughout the season. New coach, you lost a couple guys. You gained very little. But besides that, Portland's a very good team still. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. You also have Yusuf Nurkic. They lost Zach Collins, big loss there. New Orleans, I think, has the team that make the playoffs, at least a play-in, which would make it somewhat of a successful season. Utah, I think they're going to have the biggest drop-off of any team this season just because other teams made bigger moves, like the Lakers especially. I mean, from going to the play-in, now possibly being a top 3 seed. Then you have Memphis. They re-signed a couple guys. They brought in some very good players. They brought in Steven Adams. You also were able to get rid of Eric Bledsoe, even though I would have liked to see what he did there. They re-signed Jaren Jackson. Dillon Brooks is on that team. It's a very complete team, and they're very much improving on that end. So that's where it comes to the Western Conference and Eastern Conference teams that are going to make the playoffs. Now we're going to go into award predictions, starting with the MVP, who will be Kevin Durant. This guy just has it all. The tools to be the best player in the NBA, and I think he's going to take that crown this year. He's going to take the Nets as far as they'll get because the Kyrie situation, which I'll make a video on that later. I'm not going to get too political on that either. I'm just going to go more into what it affects on the side of the Nets. But yeah, Kevin Durant's going to win MVP. There's nothing else to say. He is the top player in the NBA right now. He's going to prove that this season. And yeah, and then we're going to go into Eastern Conference MVP and Western Conference MVP. These are not actual awards, but I made them myself, and I'm not going to choose Kevin Durant for East because I'm going to choose someone different. Starting with the Western Conference MVP, I'm going to go Luka Doncic. This guy is insane. He had one of the best seasons last year. In the playoffs, he went off, took the Clippers to Game 7. Obviously, he was going to say it wasn't good enough, but he was considered an MVP candidate at some point. So this really does put Luka Doncic as a top 10 player in the NBA, maybe even top 5. I don't think top 5, but top 10's for sure going to be put in there. And we'll go into the Eastern Conference player or Eastern Conference MVP, who I have Trae Young. It's funny because these guys got traded for each other in the draft. Trae Young's just someone who takes over games. You saw it in the playoffs last season versus the Knicks and the 76ers. Trae Young is ice cold, man. There's no other way to put it. He just proves the doubters wrong. Every time people say Trae Young isn't it, Trae Young was traded for Luka Doncic. He reminds you that he is worth possibly being a top 20 player in the NBA, top 5, top 10 point guard in the NBA right now. This guy takes over games. He does it all. He has great handles. He gets shots up, 3-pointers, layups. He gets it done. Trae Young's the top player in the league. And we're going to go next into Rookie of the Year. In my opinion, Rookie of the Year is going to be Jalen Green. He's just shown all the tools from going to the NBA G League, knowing how that league works because he played with NBA or former NBA players and guys who have had some kind of NBA experience. I think that's a huge factor in why I think this guy would win MVP. And he's just going to do great things, man. He's the star in Houston. All the lights are pointing to him being the future of that franchise, along with Christian Wood. You also have some other guys on that team who make a big impact. I can't name them all at the top of my head, but there are some very good studs on that team that aren't really known, but they should be. All right, going into the next award, I'm going to go a little bit back into free agency, and we're going to talk about the most improved team, in my opinion. It's the Chicago Bulls when it comes to the Eastern Conference. They got DeMar DeRozan. They kept Zach LaVine. They brought in Alex Caruso. They brought Nikola Vucevic in a trade deadline, which is worth mentioning. They got Lonzo Ball. This team went undefeated in the preseason, and I still have them making the play-in tournament. I mean, you see how much they improved, and you would say this is a team that would probably be a top 5 seed. The East is really good this year. It's going to be highly competitive. I think they could even take it over Boston at some point. And then when we go into the most improved team on the Western Conference, it is the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, you got Russell Westbrook. You got a ton of veteran talent, and Kendrick Nunn. Oh, Kendrick Nunn's not a veteran. He's young talent, but you got Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook, Trevor Ariza you brought in. You got Kent Bazemore on that team, Wayne Ellington, and then you got a little, very, very little young talent, but you're able to re-sign Tylen Horton-Tucker. You were able to get Kendrick Nunn, Malik Monk, very good players. You also got Carmelo Anthony. So Los Angeles just got a lot better. They're probably going to get top 3, top 5 seed in the Western Conference. I really can't tell you a spot right now until at least 10 or 20 games in the season. But yeah, LA is a very good team. They're going to be very, very up there in the Western Conference standings, and they're just going to be getting wins. In the least improved of the Eastern Conference, I have Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers. I think this was a little bit obvious. Their biggest free agent signing was Grigoris Niang. No offense to him, but that's not a big-time signing. They didn't make many moves, and their worst L is going to be having to trade Ben Simmons, who is a very good player when it comes to getting assists and just getting to the rim. That's probably the biggest reason why. And I don't blame him. I mean, he's not having fun in Philly. I'm going to get into that in another video. I'm going to have to do a lot more research of, when he's on the floor, when he's not on the floor, but those kinds of stats. But yeah, Ben Simmons, you're probably going to have to trade him. I'll be probably making some trade scenarios on that too. But I do like some options, like Sacramento is a very good one. Indiana very much intrigues me, at least, for an option to him to go there. So yeah, I mean, when you really look at least improved, it's going to be Philadelphia. And then when it comes to the Western Conference, I have the Portland Trailblazers. They did not get a lot better. They even got a new coach, so that's going to step them back at least a year when it comes to being highly, highly competitive. Moving on to Eastern Conference underdogs, I have the Miami Heat. I mean, I consider them a top 3 seed in the East. I think they'll be seed number 3. Kyle Lowry, Markieff Morris, PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy freaking Butler, Bam Adebayo. This team gets better, and better at the moment. The biggest loss for them was Goran Dragic. That one hurt a lot. I would have liked them to keep Trevor Ariza as well. From the start, I would have loved to have Jake Crowder on this team this season, but it didn't happen. Miami's a very good team. They're going to be one of the top defenses in the league, at least top 5 defense in this NBA season. They're dogs, man. And Bam someday. They're a kennel because there are many dogs in this team, and we all know what that means. Another underdog I think we should all consider is the Washington Wizards. Spencer Dinwiddie signed with that team. You have Bradley Beal. That is very, very scary. You also have a good Rui Hachimura, Deni Avdija. You also have Thomas Bryant, a very good center. You just got a lot of pieces that are going to work hand in hand. I cannot wait to see what happens there. And let's move on to the Western Conference underdogs, which we have the Memphis Grizzlies as one of them. Team that very much impressed us all last season with how they played. And then you have the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think this team could really make a run at the play-in. D'Lo. You have Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. They have a very good power forward core. They have a very good young talent, Jalen McDaniels. I like what Minnesota is building. Hopefully they build off of that into the next seasons to come. So yeah, we're going to get into the final categories, which will be East overhyped and Western team that is overhyped. My Eastern Conference team that's overhyped is the Boston Celtics. I just don't see where the hype is coming from. This team, I think, got worse in my opinion. They look like a rebuilding team almost. They got crushed by the Brooklyn Nets, and I don't blame them. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think they'll get there again, but yeah, Boston, I just see them overhyped. You lost Kemba Walker. You pretty much got rid of him, but you lost Gordon Hayward last season. You got rid of Daniel Tice. You don't really have a clear-cut center. You have to bring back Enes Kanter. So you just look at it, and it's a weird situation with Boston. I don't know where they're going to go with it. They have a lot of young talent, and it's just weird. And then for the Western Conference is Utah. I don't see what you guys let's see in Utah. I see him as the top 7 seed. I think I see him more in the play-in than actually making the playoffs. Maybe they take over Dallas' spot. I don't know, but Donovan Mitchell is on that team. You got rid of Derek Favors. Rudy Gobert is still on that team. You got Mike Conley. You got rid of a couple guys on that team that could have made a huge impact this season. It's a weird scenario in Utah. And then finally, we're going to enter our way too early NBA Finals predictions, which is Phoenix versus the Brooklyn Nets. I see this happening. This is going to be one hell of a finals matchup. Devin Booker facing off Kevin Durant in the freaking finals. Who does not want to see that? Let's be honest. And that is exactly where I'm going to end it, folks. I mean, very short and simple video. Tried to summarize as much as I could for you guys. Once again, make sure to subscribe. I'll probably be posting clips of the videos so you guys don't have to watch the whole thing. If, for example, you just want to watch who's going to win the MVP, you'll see my analysis on that. Or you guys want to see more of a playoff teams analysis and play-in, I'll be making that as well. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm trying to make this as best as possible for you guys to, I guess, visually think of in your head what I'm talking about or what I'm showing on screen, in which I'm pretty much only showing thumbnail, like mini thumbnails I'm making of the actual teams, the players, and the awards. So yeah, and I forgot to mention, Coach of the Year, I have Eric Spoelstra, very good team in Miami. I think to really lead this team as far as possible, if they get to the finals, he deserves it, because to overcome Brooklyn and Milwaukee is going to be difficult. Yeah, I'm going to end it there. Once again, my name is Kevin Barral. Subscribe, follow us on Apple Podcasts for my Apple viewers. And if you're on Spotify, subscribe to the podcast, man, to the listeners that aren't watching this on YouTube. I very much highly recommend you guys to come to YouTube and watch it over here as well if you're very interested in more of a visual person, when listening or watching anything. Once again, subscribe. My name is Kevin Barral. Have a great day and enjoy the NBA season. Miami Heat, that's the team I'm rolling with. As usual, you all know that. Let me know in the comments which is your NBA team that you're going to be rooting for. So in the future, I don't say this guy's a bandwagon. I don't want that. So claim your team now. You have time. Peace out, guys, and have a great day.